The courtroom buzzed with a low murmur of anticipation. It wasn't the first time Elon Musk had found himself in the center of public scrutiny, but today felt different. There was something about the air in that room, something electric, as if every word, every gesture was under a magnifying glass. Everyone in the gallery, every reporter, every lawyer, and even the judge, knew it. The stakes couldn't be higher. The trial that had brought one of the most famous entrepreneurs of the century into the public eye was more than a case, it was a spectacle. The tension was palpable. "Mr. Musk," Judge William Hanley's voice boomed, breaking the silence. The man was middle-aged, sharp-eyed, with a reputation for being both thorough and, at times, cutting. But today, his usual composure was tinged with something else, perhaps a little too much confidence, a little too much mockery. Musk, wearing his usual dark suit, his expression calm, raised an eyebrow. It was a look he often wore when things got difficult, a small, silent challenge. His presence, despite the sea of people around him, was undeniable. The man who had changed the world through Tesla, SpaceX, and a string of other companies sat in that courtroom with a quiet power that seemed to make the space around him shrink. But today, it was being tested. Judge Hanley smiled a little too widely. "Let me get this straight, Mr. Musk," he said, his voice laced with sarcasm. "You want us to believe that Tesla's unparalleled innovation is more important than, say, your patented flamethrowers or your latest Twitter rants? Really?" The judge's words cut through the room like a knife. He'd already made his point loud and clear. Elon Musk was a man who lived in the headlines, a man who thrived on controversy, and now, he was on trial for it. There were murmurs throughout the room. The audience seemed to hold their collective breath as they waited for Musk's response. Most would expect him to snap, to retaliate, but instead, there was silence. Musk didn't flinch. He sat back in his chair, eyes cool, taking in the moment as if he were observing a minor inconvenience, a fly buzzing around his head. He had learned to maintain composure in the face of far worse. Judge Hanley, perhaps sensing the tension in the room, pressed on. "I mean, really, Mr. Musk, how does it feel to be the world's richest clown?" The words hung in the air like a thick fog. The room waited, breathless. Even Musk's lawyers looked uneasy, exchanging quick glances. Everyone knew this was not just a trial, it was turning into a personal vendetta. And Hanley was making sure everyone knew it. But then, something strange happened. Musk didn't respond. Not with words. Instead, he simply raised his hand, as if he were about to speak. The entire courtroom froze. Everyone leaned in, waiting for him to give a cutting remark, to unleash his usual sarcastic quip. But instead, he spoke slowly, almost deliberately. "You really want to know, Judge?" Musk asked, his voice steady, his eyes locked on the judge's. There was a moment of eerie silence before he continued, "You're about to regret saying that. But hey, I get it. You need the spotlight, right?" A small chuckle escaped Musk, one that was impossible to ignore. The judge, despite his years of experience, couldn't help but feel his pulse quicken. This wasn't the reaction he'd expected. His face faltered for just a split second, but only those paying close attention caught it. His smile tightened, as if it were plastered on his face rather than genuine amusement. "Mr. Musk, I think you misunderstand," Judge Hanley said, his voice no longer dripping with humor but with a cold, sharp edge. "I'm merely stating the obvious. You're here for a reason. People like you, people who think they're above it all, need to be brought down a peg or two." There was a moment of awkward silence before the gallery erupted into whispers. The tension was building. The courtroom was no longer just a place of legal proceedings. It had become a battlefield. Musk wasn't just fighting the lawsuit anymore, he was fighting for his pride, for his reputation, and perhaps, for his own sanity. And then, as if to show his mastery of the moment, Musk did something that no one had expected. He leaned forward, his elbows on the table, his hands clasped in front of him. You know, Judge, Musk began, his tone even but laced with a quiet intensity, I could sit here and argue with you all day. But let's be real, you're the one who's playing the fool right now. Not me. For a moment, the judge seemed to stiffen. His jaw clenched as his eyes narrowed, trying to maintain control over the situation. But something in Musk's tone, something so casually confident, hit a nerve. The judge wasn't prepared for this kind of comeback. He had expected a celebrity tantrum, perhaps even a dramatic gesture. But no, Musk had just delivered a quiet, cutting truth that left the judge unsure of how to respond. And that's when it happened. The turning point. The judge, perhaps too much in his own head, made a grave mistake. He leaned forward in his chair and spoke through clenched teeth. You think you're untouchable, Mr. Musk? You think you can hide behind your money, your fame, and your so-called genius? Well, let me tell you something, you're no better than the rest of us in here. You're just a man. Musk's eyes locked onto the judge's with an unflinching calm. I'll remember that, he said, his voice low but firm. Trust me, Judge, you'll regret those words sooner than you think. And with that, the room fell deathly silent. The air was thick with the weight of that promise. The judge had made his move, but it was clear now that Musk wasn't the only one playing the game. And whatever came next, no one would leave that courtroom unchanged. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Elon Musk had always been a dreamer, but not in the way most people imagined. He wasn't the kind of dreamer who floated through life, content to let the world pass by. No, Musk's dreams were vast and audacious, the kind that only a few people in history ever dared to chase. And unlike many others, he didn't just dream, he built. Born in Pretoria, South Africa, in 1971, Elon had an upbringing that could best be described as complicated. His father, Elon Musk, was a brilliant but often cold engineer with a sharp intellect and a blunt demeanor. He didn't exactly inspire affection. His mother, May, was a Canadian-born model and dietitian who was loving but often absent due to her own busy career. It was an unconventional upbringing, one that left young Elon with a sense of isolation. His childhood wasn't marked by the warmth of a close-knit family, but rather by hours spent in front of books, engrossed in science fiction, and later, computer programming. At the age of 12, Musk created and sold a video game called Blaster, a simple space shooter for which he received a mere $500. While that was a tiny sum in the grand scheme of things, it was a glimpse into Musk's drive. That early taste of success, however small, became a stepping stone toward his future. The world would eventually come to know him as a billionaire tech mogul, but in those early years, Musk's ambition wasn't about wealth, it was about something more. It was about solving the world's problems, pushing boundaries, and doing things that people told him were impossible. As a teenager, Musk faced relentless bullying at school. His sharp intellect, combined with his often awkward social demeanor, made him an easy target for the other kids. His experiences of being picked on, of feeling like an outsider, created a fire within him, a desire to prove everyone wrong, to show them that he wasn't just the odd kid in the back of the classroom. He was destined for something much greater. At 17, Elon moved to Canada to attend Queen's University, choosing to bypass the compulsory service in the South African military, a decision that likely saved his life, given the political climate at the time. After 2 years, he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania in the United States, where he earned degrees in both economics and physics. But by then, Musk had already begun to see the world through a different lens. The technology boom was upon him, and while most of his peers were content to follow traditional career paths, Musk's mind was already far ahead, contemplating how he could change the world. In 1995, just 2 years after finishing college, Musk dropped out of a PhD program at Stanford after just 2 days. It was a bold decision, one that raised eyebrows among those who believed that a conventional career was the safest path. But for Musk, it was clear, the world wasn't going to change from a classroom. It was going to change from the outside, through action. He founded Zip2, a software company that helped newspapers create an online presence. It was here that he began to make his first significant mark. In 1999, Compaq bought Zip2 for nearly $300 million, and Musk received $22 million from the sale. But instead of resting on his newfound wealth, he reinvested nearly all of it into his next venture, X.com, which would eventually become PayPal. By 2002, eBay bought PayPal for $1.5 billion, and Musk received another $165 million. His early entrepreneurial ventures had already given him the wealth and the platform to push forward with even bigger dreams. With PayPal behind him, Musk set his sights on revolutionizing the transportation industry. In 2004, he founded Tesla Motors, with the goal of accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. And then, SpaceX, his ultimate passion, followed. Musk wanted to send people to Mars, not just as a scientific endeavor but as a way to ensure the survival of humanity. His ambition was clear: he wasn't just building companies, he was building the future. But all of this didn't come without a price. Musk faced intense personal and professional challenges. In 2008, both SpaceX and Tesla were on the brink of failure, and Musk found himself without much of a safety net. His marriage to Justine Musk ended in divorce, and his personal life became the subject of tabloid fodder. But instead of collapsing under the weight of adversity, Musk pushed forward. In 2008, he famously invested his own money to keep both Tesla and SpaceX afloat, even as it seemed like the world was conspiring against him. That year, SpaceX launched its Falcon 9 rocket, and Tesla released its first Roadster, two monumental achievements that proved Musk's vision was, in fact, possible. Fast forward to the present day, and Elon Musk was a man whose name was synonymous with innovation, risk, and success. He had built a legacy, one that straddled industries from electric cars and rockets to artificial intelligence and brain-machine interfaces. But for all his wealth and fame, Musk remained a man of contradictions. He could be humble one moment, arrogant the next. He could be deeply introspective and simultaneously unpredictable. And in the court of public opinion, he was constantly playing a high-stakes game of perception, often teetering between the hero and the villain. The public's view of Musk was just as divided as his personality. Some saw him as a visionary, a man who would ultimately save the planet by creating sustainable energy and making humanity a multiplanetary species. Others saw him as a reckless billionaire with too much power and not enough accountability. But in that courtroom on that fateful day, the only thing that mattered was the image that Judge William Hanley had painted of him: a clown, a fool. In that moment, all Musk's achievements, his groundbreaking ventures, his personal sacrifices, all of it, seemed irrelevant. The world wasn't seeing him as the man who had altered the course of history. No, they were seeing him as a target. And that's when Musk realized that his entire life had prepared him for this moment. He wasn't just going to sit back and let the judge take the low road. He wasn't going to let some arrogant, self-important man mock him and get away with it. There was something deeply personal in that courtroom, something Musk hadn't anticipated, a reckoning. Elon Musk sat in his chair, staring across the courtroom at Judge Hanley. The words from the judge echoed in his mind: "You think you're untouchable, Mr. Musk? You think you can hide behind your money, your fame, and your so-called genius?" That was it. The line had been crossed. The trial had initially been about a lawsuit involving Tesla's alleged misstatements about vehicle production, but Musk quickly realized it was becoming something more. This was no longer just a legal battle. It had become personal. Judge Hanley, despite his legal expertise, was playing with fire. And now, Musk was going to make him feel it. The next few moments in the courtroom were marked by a tense silence. The crowd waited, holding their collective breath. Even the attorneys seemed unsure of how to proceed. Musk's lawyers, who had been meticulously planning their defense for weeks, exchanged worried glances. But Musk wasn't worried. He wasn't intimidated. In fact, the more the judge pressed, the more Musk's resolve hardened. "Your Honor," Musk finally spoke, breaking the stillness. His voice was calm, measured, but there was an edge to it that everyone could feel. You've made your point, but I'd like to make something clear. I'm here because I care about something greater than myself. It's easy for you to sit up there and mock my work, my company, my life. But let's talk about something else for a second. Let's talk about your role in all of this. Judge Hanley raised an eyebrow. He wasn't expecting this. The courtroom buzzed, and Musk's words landed like a bombshell. The atmosphere shifted. People were listening now, leaning forward in their seats. Musk leaned in a little, the smirk on his face more a sign of confidence than arrogance. You sit there behind that bench, acting like you're above the rest of us. But here's the reality, Judge, you're just a man. And the difference between you and me is this: I'm out there trying to fix things, trying to make a real difference in the world, while you're sitting there, in your comfortable little bubble, passing judgment on people you don't even understand. A murmur rippled through the gallery. The judge shifted in his seat, his face reddening. This was not how he thought the day would go. He had expected Musk to fumble, to stumble under the pressure. But instead, the billionaire entrepreneur was speaking directly to the judge, exposing the hypocrisy that lingered just beneath the surface. You're not the one making electric vehicles that could save this planet from climate change, Musk continued. You're not the one who's trying to build a colony on Mars in case we mess things up here. But somehow, you think you're in a position to mock me? To dismiss what I'm doing? The judge opened his mouth to respond but stopped. He was caught off guard. His public persona, his authority, was beginning to crumble in front of everyone. The room, once buzzing with tension, was now entirely focused on Musk. The shift had happened too quickly for Hanley to keep up. Let's not kid ourselves, Your Honor, Musk said, his tone sharp. You have no idea what it's like to put your entire life on the line for something bigger than yourself. You have no idea what it's like to risk everything, your money, your time, your energy, all because you believe in something. You're not a visionary. You're just a judge. The words hit Hanley like a slap in the face. For the first time in his career, he found himself speechless. He wasn't used to this. He was supposed to be the one in control. He was supposed to be the one who made the rules, who called the shots. But Elon Musk had turned the tables. And now, the judge felt the sting of his own arrogance. In the briefest of moments, Musk saw it, an opening. He could see that the judge was losing his composure, and that made the situation even more dangerous. The more the judge fumbled, the more it would escalate, and Musk wasn't about to let this moment slip away. If he could play this game right, this wouldn't just be a victory in the courtroom, it would be a public humiliation for Hanley, one that would echo far beyond the walls of this courtroom. But Hanley wasn't about to back down without a fight. His pride had been bruised, and now, more than ever, he needed to reassert his dominance. I'm in charge here, Mr. Musk, Hanley finally managed to say, his voice tight with barely restrained anger. You'll address this court with the respect it deserves, or I'll have you held in contempt. The tension in the room thickened. The air felt charged, as if at any moment, things could spiral out of control. Musk wasn't one to back down from a challenge, but he also understood the stakes. If he pushed too hard, too fast, it could backfire. You're in charge of this court, sure, Musk replied, his voice now laced with a subtle, but biting, calmness. But that doesn't make you any less human, does it? It doesn't make you perfect, Judge. We all have our flaws. We all have our biases. And I'm just calling you out on it. This isn't about me. It's about what you represent, the establishment, the system, the people who hide behind their own power to put others down. Hanley's eyes narrowed. This wasn't just a trial anymore. This was an ideological clash, a battle of egos. And suddenly, the case against Musk seemed like just a backdrop to the real conflict at hand, the clash between two powerful personalities, two very different worldviews. You know, Mr. Musk, Hanley said, his voice low but dangerous, you might be a genius in your own right, but that doesn't make you untouchable. People like you often forget that. For a brief second, it looked like Musk might relent. But he didn't. Instead, he leaned forward, the faintest of smiles playing on his lips. I'm not untouchable, Judge. I'm just better at playing the game than you are. The courtroom fell silent once more. The battle lines had been drawn, and the real fight was just beginning. Musk was no longer just defending himself in a lawsuit, he was defending his very identity, and in doing so, he had ignited a fire that would consume them both. The atmosphere in the courtroom was now electric with tension, every eye locked on Elon Musk and Judge Hanley, as if the entire world was waiting for the next move. Musk had just thrown a punch, but this was far from over. He knew it, and Hanley knew it too. The judge's attempt to regain control was futile. Musk had put him in a position where he had no choice but to respond. But no response came immediately. Instead, the silence stretched, thick and palpable, as the stakes of this battle seemed to rise higher than anyone could have predicted. The case against Musk had started out as an ordinary legal proceeding. Tesla was accused of making misleading statements about production timelines, and there were serious questions about the company's financial health. It was supposed to be a matter of corporate mismanagement and a legal technicality that Musk would navigate with his usual determination. But now, it was becoming something far more personal, a clash of two fundamentally different forces. The clock ticked on, but the courtroom remained frozen. It was as though no one dared to breathe, fearing that if they did, they might break the fragile tension that had settled in the room. But then the judge slammed his gavel down. Enough. Hanley barked, his voice booming in the otherwise silent courtroom. This is not the time or the place for this kind of confrontation, Mr. Musk. You're here to answer for the actions of your company, not to insult the court or its officials. The gavel's sound echoed throughout the room, but it was no match for the weight of Musk's words. The courtroom was no longer simply a place where legal arguments were made. It had become the stage for a battle of egos, a clash between the establishment and the disruptor. And Musk was not going to back down now. His eyes never left Hanley. The quiet confidence that Musk exuded was evident as he leaned forward slightly, his voice cool and controlled. Your Honor, Musk said, his words cutting through the tension like a blade, I'm not here to disrespect the court. But you asked for this. You mocked me. And you've done so in front of the entire world. You want respect. You'll have to earn it, just like everyone else. Hanley's face was reddening with rage. He had underestimated Musk, thinking that he could humiliate the billionaire CEO in front of a public audience. But Musk had never been the kind of person who crumbled under pressure. He had built his empire on the foundation of defying expectations, and now, in this very moment, he was showing the world exactly what that meant. I don't need to earn your respect, Mr. Musk, Hanley shot back, though his words lacked conviction. He was rattled, struggling to regain control. I'm in charge here. You'll obey the rules of this court, or face consequences. Musk didn't flinch. Instead, he allowed the weight of his silence to hang in the air for a few moments before speaking again. I don't play by your rules, Judge, he said slowly, with deliberate calmness. I play by the rules of progress. You want me to play nice, but you're part of the system that keeps us stuck. It's not just about what's legal or right, it's about moving humanity forward. And you don't get that. You're too busy hiding behind that robe to see the big picture. The judge glared at Musk, but this time, the anger was mixed with something else, fear. Fear of losing control, fear of the power Musk now wielded in that room. The public scrutiny was palpable. Every eye in the courtroom was fixed on the two of them, on this war of words, and the jury, the media, and even the spectators could feel the rising heat. The world had become an audience to this showdown. I'm not some pawn in your little narrative, Mr. Musk, Hanley growled. You may think you're untouchable, but you're not. I will have order in my courtroom. Musk paused, his expression unreadable. He knew that pushing Hanley further could lead to serious consequences. He could be held in contempt of court, the case could be dismissed, or worse, Tesla could face irreparable damage to its reputation. But that didn't scare him. What scared him, more than anything, was the idea of giving up. Of letting someone like Hanley, someone who couldn't even begin to comprehend the scale of Musk's ambitions, tear down everything he had built. Instead of responding immediately, Musk took a deep breath and let his mind wander to the very thing that had driven him throughout his entire career, the future. A future where humanity wasn't dependent on fossil fuels, a future where humanity wasn't confined to Earth, and a future where the impossible was within reach. Musk's fight wasn't just for Tesla or SpaceX. It was for something much larger. And if Hanley couldn't see that, it didn't matter. The world would see. "I'm not asking for your approval," Musk said quietly but firmly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "I'm asking for a fair shot, just like anyone else who is trying to change the world. But if you're so blinded by your power that you can't see what's at stake, then I'll make sure the world sees who you really are." The courtroom went silent again, as the words hung in the air like a challenge. The power dynamics had shifted completely. Judge Hanley, once so sure of his authority, was now in a vulnerable position. Musk had laid down a gauntlet, and it was clear that Hanley's ego wouldn't let him pick it up without consequences. And just when it seemed like the judge might explode with another outburst, something unexpected happened. The door to the courtroom opened, and in stepped an unexpected figure, Gina Stiles, one of Musk's closest allies and Tesla's top legal advisor. Her timing was impeccable. Her presence in the room acted like a pressure valve, easing the intense tension that had been building up. With one cool glance toward the judge, she spoke. "Your Honor," she said, her voice calm and professional, "I believe we've all had enough of the theatrics for today. It's time to focus on the facts." Her intervention was a turning point. It was a moment of clarity amidst the chaos. Musk knew the path forward wouldn't be easy, but it had just become a lot clearer. He wasn't just fighting for Tesla's survival. He was fighting for something much larger, his own vision of the future, and he wouldn't let anyone, not even a judge, stand in his way. The courtroom had taken on an almost surreal atmosphere. Elon Musk's words hung in the air like a storm cloud, casting a shadow over Judge Hanley, who now seemed like a man caught in the midst of a rising tide he could no longer control. The earlier bravado from the judge had all but disappeared, replaced by a simmering frustration. This wasn't just a legal case anymore, it was a personal vendetta, and Musk had managed to turn the tide in his favor. Gina Stiles, having expertly defused the immediate crisis, stood at Musk's side, her gaze never leaving the judge. Her presence in the room had given Musk the brief respite he needed, but he knew the battle was far from over. He couldn't afford to get distracted. This was his moment to push forward, to ensure that his voice, his mission, was heard by the world. Musk's heart was pounding in his chest. His mind raced, but he kept his outward composure. The world was watching. The pressure had always been there, but now, it was palpable. His very reputation, not just as a businessman, but as a visionary, was on the line. In this moment, the outcome of this courtroom drama had far-reaching consequences. If he lost here, it wouldn't just be a legal defeat, it would be a blow to everything he stood for, to the entire future he was trying to build. The judge's gavel slammed again, this time not in an effort to regain control but in resignation. "I will adjourn for the day," Hanley muttered, his voice tight, almost a whisper. He looked defeated, a far cry from the commanding figure he had been earlier. "We'll reconvene tomorrow. But I expect you to show respect, Mr. Musk. This is your last warning." Musk didn't respond immediately. His eyes locked onto the judge's, and for a brief moment, a look of something akin to pity flickered in his gaze. The judge, a man who had mocked him just hours ago, was now the one backing down. But Musk knew this was far from over. This was merely the first round in a much longer and more dangerous game. As the court emptied, the tension lingered, thick in the air. Musk stood, gathering his thoughts, preparing for the next step in this saga. But even as his legal team rushed around him, briefing him on strategy and making sure everything was in order for the following day. Musk couldn't help but feel a sense of unease gnawing at the back of his mind. The emotional toll of the day had hit harder than he expected. He had successfully thrown the judge off balance, but he knew this fight wasn't just about winning in the courtroom. It was about something much more profound, the battle for public perception. Musk made his way out of the courthouse, flanked by his team. He didn't speak much, his mind racing with thoughts of how to move forward. He had known the stakes would be high, but he hadn't anticipated how deeply this trial would affect him personally. This wasn't just about Tesla or SpaceX, it was about the vision he had for the future, a vision that many still didn't understand. Outside, the press was waiting. Cameras flashed as reporters shouted questions, desperate for a soundbite. They had all witnessed the tense exchanges in the courtroom, and they wanted Musk's take on it. "Mr. Musk, how do you feel about Judge Hanley's decision to adjourn today?" one reporter called out. Musk paused for a moment, turning toward the crowd. The questions were predictable, the same ones he had fielded countless times before. But today was different. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, the culmination of everything he had fought for coming to a head. "Judge Hanley," Musk said, his voice calm but with an edge that was unmistakable, "wants respect. But respect isn't something you just demand, it's something you earn. And that's not just for me. It's for anyone who dares to challenge the status quo. The world needs people who are willing to risk everything, who are willing to face the hardest battles head-on, not just the ones that are easy to win." He took a deep breath, feeling the intensity of the moment. This wasn't just a courtroom battle anymore. This was a fight for everything he had worked for. "I'm not here to play by the old rules," he continued, his voice gaining strength with each word. "I'm here to build a future. And if some people don't like that, well, they'll just have to deal with it. But I'm not stopping. Not now. Not ever." The reporters scribbled furiously in their notebooks, catching every word, but Musk wasn't finished. This was his chance to send a message, not just to Hanley, but to the world. To the skeptics, the critics, the people who had always doubted his grand vision. They had always thought he was just a man with big dreams, out of touch with reality. But now, they were seeing something different. They were seeing a man who refused to back down. A man who would not be swayed by the pressure of those in power. "Tomorrow, we go back into that courtroom," Musk said, his tone unshakable, "and we fight. Not just for me. Not just for Tesla. We fight for the future. And if the judge doesn't like that, then I guess he'll just have to live with it." As Musk finished his statement, the reporters were left in stunned silence. The words had landed with the force of a meteor crashing into the earth. There was no mistaking the message now. The battle in the courtroom was far from over, but Musk had shifted the dynamic. And in doing so, he had made it clear, he wasn't just fighting for his company. He was fighting for something much bigger than himself. The following morning, the atmosphere inside the courtroom felt different. There was an intensity in the air, an electricity that hummed through the walls, felt by every person present. The world was watching. This was no longer just a legal case, this was the culmination of a battle between two worlds. On one side, Elon Musk, the visionary who had reshaped industries and built empires from scratch. On the other, Judge Hanley, the embodiment of the old guard, fighting to maintain his authority in a system that Musk had proven, time and again, could be bent to his will. Musk sat in the courtroom, his hands resting on the table in front of him, his gaze unwavering. His mind was calm, but the feeling in his chest, the heavy weight of what was at stake, was impossible to ignore. He had been through countless challenges, but this was different. This was the most personal battle he had ever faced. If he lost here, it wouldn't just be a blow to his companies, it would be a defeat for the vision he had fought for, a defeat for everything he had ever believed in. The tension was palpable as the clock ticked down to the moment of reckoning. Musk's legal team was prepared, his strategy tight, and yet, he knew that the outcome of this trial wasn't just about legal arguments. It was about something more profound, the future. Gina Stiles sat beside him, reviewing notes, her mind sharp as always. She knew what this case meant for Musk, and she knew how important it was for him to stay focused. Her eyes flicked up to meet Musk's, and in that brief exchange, there was an unspoken understanding between them. They had been through the trenches together, and today was the final battle. As the doors to the courtroom swung open, Judge Hanley made his way to the bench. His face was tight, his eyes narrowed. The previous day had shaken him, but now, in this moment, he had a point to prove. He couldn't afford to lose control again, not in front of the world. "I trust we're all prepared to continue." Hanley's voice cut through the silence, and there was a noticeable edge to his words. "Mr. Musk, I expect your behavior to be exemplary today." Musk didn't flinch. He sat up straighter, his gaze never leaving the judge. "I'll behave as required, Your Honor," Musk replied coolly, his voice steady. "But let's make one thing clear, this is about the truth. Nothing more, nothing less." Hanley scowled but nodded, signaling that the trial would resume. The day was filled with arguments and counterarguments, with each side trying to outmaneuver the other. But throughout it all, Musk remained calm, his focus unwavering. He had seen every tactic, every move the opposition had thrown at him, and he was ready for it. This wasn't just a courtroom, it was a chessboard, and Musk was always 3 moves ahead. But despite his calm demeanor, the emotional toll of the case was beginning to show. The pressure of having everything he had worked for in jeopardy was wearing on him, even if he refused to let it show. As the hours wore on, his mind occasionally wandered back to the question that had haunted him since the beginning: what if he lost? The thought was there, lurking in the back of his mind. But Musk pushed it aside. Losing wasn't an option. He couldn't let the world think that he had been defeated by the system. He couldn't let Hanley or anyone else think that they could break him. He had come too far, fought too hard, to let this trial determine his legacy. It wasn't until the afternoon, when the judge called for a recess, that Musk allowed himself a moment of reflection. He stepped outside into the cool air, the bright sun reflecting off the glass and steel of the surrounding buildings. His team gathered around him, discussing their next steps, but Musk found himself lost in thought, staring at the skyline. He had built something extraordinary. Tesla, SpaceX, and now Neuralink and the Boring Company. He had taken on the giants of industry, faced failure more times than he could count, and somehow, always found a way to rise again. But now, the stakes were higher than ever. The world was watching, waiting to see if he could truly change the game. A few moments passed before Gina stepped outside to join him. She didn't speak right away, but when she did, her words were direct. "Elon, we're not just fighting for Tesla here," she said, her voice steady but with a hint of something deeper, something that had been brewing throughout the trial. "We're fighting for every person who believes in the future. Every single person who believes that what we're doing isn't just a dream, but a reality that's within our reach." Musk turned to her, his gaze softening just slightly. "I know," he said quietly. "But it's hard not to feel like it's all hanging by a thread." "Nothing worth doing has ever been easy," Gina replied. "We've been up against odds before, and we've come out on top. You've built a legacy, Elon. But what matters most is not the victory today, it's the path we're on. The world needs you to keep moving forward, no matter what." Musk nodded slowly, taking in her words. The weight he had been carrying seemed a little lighter, but only slightly. This was more than just a courtroom victory, this was about changing the course of history. With that, they returned to the courtroom, ready for the final push. The hours that followed were the culmination of everything. There were no more theatrics, no more games. The closing arguments were delivered, and for the first time in this long, exhausting trial, Musk could feel a sense of finality in the air. When the time came for the judge to issue his verdict, the room was nearly silent. Every person in the courtroom held their breath, waiting for Hanley to speak. The future of Musk's empire, of his legacy, hinged on the words that would soon come from the judge's mouth. Hanley looked down at the papers in front of him, his expression unreadable. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke. "Mr. Musk," the judge said, his voice stern but oddly resigned, "this court finds in favor of the defendant. The charges against you are dismissed." A wave of relief washed over Musk. His heart still raced, but for a different reason now. This was victory. The room erupted into a quiet buzz, but Musk barely noticed. He stood up, shaking hands with his legal team. As he walked out of the courtroom, he felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just a win, it was the beginning of something even bigger. As he stepped outside into the sunlight, a feeling of calm settled over him. The battle had been fierce, but he had fought for something far beyond himself. The future. And the future, he knew, was worth every sacrifice. The days following the verdict were a whirlwind. The press coverage was relentless. Headlines screamed of Elon Musk's courtroom triumph, with some touting his victory as a win for free thinkers everywhere, while others called it a setback for the traditional power structures that had held sway for so long. Musk's phone didn't stop ringing. His inbox was flooded with messages of congratulations and inquiries about future projects. The world had taken notice. But amid all the celebration, Musk found himself alone, navigating through a sea of phone calls and meetings, trying to figure out what came next. He had always been a man with a vision, but now, more than ever, that vision felt heavier than before. The trial, while over, had changed him. It had forced him to confront not only the world's resistance to his ideas but also his own fears and insecurities about the future. He sat alone in his office one evening, a glass of whiskey in hand, staring out at the city skyline. The lights twinkled in the distance, a constant reminder of the world he was trying to change. But as he looked out over the horizon, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping away, that no matter how hard he fought, there would always be forces that wanted to drag him back to the past. Gina walked into the room, her usual calm demeanor a comforting presence in the midst of his thoughts. She had been with him through thick and thin, and Musk knew that if there was anyone who understood the weight of the world on his shoulders, it was her. "You're quiet," she said softly, sitting down across from him. "That's not like you." Musk let out a deep sigh, running a hand through his hair. "I should be celebrating. This was a huge win. But something feels off. I don't know, Gina. There's just always this pressure. I keep thinking, what's next? What if the world's not ready for the future I'm trying to build?" Gina studied him for a moment, then leaned forward. "The world's never ready for change when it's happening. Look at every major revolution in history. The people who pushed the boundaries were always seen as crazy, as out of touch. But they were right. And you're right. The future is happening, and you're leading it. Don't lose sight of that." Musk listened, but the words didn't quite reach him. His mind was elsewhere. "You're right," he said, his voice distant. "But every time I think we're on the brink of something, I feel like the world pulls me back. People don't want to change. They don't want to risk everything. They're too comfortable with the way things are." "That's because they don't see the bigger picture," Gina replied. "And maybe that's where you come in. Maybe the world needs to see it through your eyes." He thought about her words for a long time. Could he truly make them see? Could he bring the future into focus for them in a way they could understand? The question had plagued him from the beginning, and even now, despite his triumph, he wasn't sure of the answer. Just then, his phone buzzed on the desk. Musk glanced at the screen, an incoming video call from SpaceX headquarters. He hadn't been expecting it, but he answered it without hesitation. "Hey, Elon," said Gwynne Shotwell, SpaceX's president and COO, her face appearing on the screen. "I know you're still riding the high from the trial, but we've got some things to discuss. You might want to sit down for this." Musk raised an eyebrow. "What's going on?" Gwynne's expression was serious, the usual jovial tone replaced with one of urgency. "We've hit a significant roadblock with the Mars mission. There's a regulatory issue we need to address immediately." Musk's heart sank. Of all the things he'd expected to hear after his victory, this wasn't it. SpaceX was his life's work. Mars was the future, the next step for humanity. Any setback there felt like a personal failure. What kind of issue? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. It's the FAA, Gwyn explained. They've put a hold on our launch plans. They're citing environmental concerns, and they're demanding we conduct additional studies before we can proceed. This could delay the mission for months, maybe even longer. Musk leaned back in his chair, a bitter taste filling his mouth. This wasn't just a technical issue, it was a fight for the future of humanity. The roadblocks, the bureaucracy, it all felt like a reminder of the uphill battle he had been facing his entire career. Gwyn, you've got to push back. We can't afford to slow down. The whole world is watching. They're waiting for us to show them that the future is real. I know, Elon, she said softly. But this is bigger than just SpaceX. There are political forces at play here. We have to be careful. Musk gripped the edge of his desk, frustration mounting. It felt like no matter what he did, someone was always standing in his way, trying to put out the fire he was desperately trying to ignite. Get the team on it, he said after a long pause. I want this resolved, and I want it fast. Gwyn nodded. We're on it. I'll keep you updated. As the call ended, Musk sat in silence. The weight of it all pressed down on him. The trial had been a victory, but it had also reminded him of something important. Nothing in this fight for the future was going to come easy. Every step forward seemed to be met with resistance, and even the smallest setbacks could feel like insurmountable obstacles. But Musk had never been one to give up. He leaned forward, taking a deep breath. There was no turning back. The future was still ahead of him, and he would keep pushing, no matter what. Gina watched him closely, sensing the shift in his mood. She stood up and placed a hand on his shoulder. You've got this, she said quietly. For the first time in days, Musk smiled, though it was tinged with uncertainty. Yeah, he said, his voice firm again. I've got this. The future wasn't just a dream, it was a battle. And Musk was ready to fight for it. The following days were a blur of meetings, calls, and more challenges. SpaceX was pushing forward, but the bureaucratic forces arrayed against them were formidable. Musk had spent years trying to break down barriers, only to discover that some walls were more deeply entrenched than he'd ever anticipated. But this wasn't the time to give up. He had always believed that great things came with great resistance, and this moment, though daunting, was just another test of that belief. As the pressure mounted, Musk found himself in his usual war room, a high-tech conference room at Tesla's headquarters. Screens flashed with data, projections, and updates on everything from Mars missions to electric vehicle production. But today, his attention was divided. His mind kept wandering back to the same question: why was the opposition so fierce? He glanced over at Gina, who had been working tirelessly on the legal strategy for the SpaceX issue, her face etched with focus. Gina, what are we missing here? Musk asked, his voice tinged with frustration. This isn't just about the Mars mission anymore. There's something bigger happening behind the scenes. Gina paused, looking up from the stack of papers in front of her. Her eyes narrowed as if she were thinking the same thing. I've been digging into this, Elon. It's not just the FAA. There's a bigger web at play. Regulatory bodies are often influenced by powerful lobbyists, companies that have a lot to lose if we succeed. Musk's eyebrows furrowed. You think we're being targeted? It's more than that. I'm starting to believe there are people, powerful players, who want to stop us from changing the status quo. They're threatened by what we represent. A future where technology, energy, and transportation are radically different. A future where they no longer hold the reins. Musk rubbed his temples, the weight of the revelation settling in. He had always known that his ambitions were disruptive, but the notion that powerful interests were actively working against him was a new, uncomfortable truth. It wasn't just about the technology, it was about control. Just then, the door to the conference room opened, and a new figure entered, a tall man with dark, sharp features. His name was Adam Fairchild, and he was one of the brightest minds at Tesla, with a background in both energy policy and geopolitics. He had been tasked with handling some of the most sensitive matters related to Tesla's energy expansion. "Elon, Gina," Adam said, his tone grave. "I think we need to have a broader conversation. There's something we've uncovered that you both need to know." Musk leaned forward, sensing the seriousness in Adam's voice. "What's going on?" Adam pulled up a document on the screen. It was a series of internal communications between high-ranking officials from various corporations that Musk knew well. The documents outlined a coordinated campaign to slow the growth of renewable energy and space exploration, particularly projects that Musk was involved in. "They're trying to box us in," Adam said, his voice low. "We've got corporate giants, and even government agencies, working behind the scenes to create regulatory hurdles. Some of these players have financial interests in fossil fuels or traditional aerospace. They're doing everything they can to stop us." Musk's face darkened. This wasn't just a battle for technological supremacy anymore. It was a war of ideologies, a fight for the future of humanity, but also a fight against those who were determined to hold on to the past. He had always known that his vision was dangerous to the established order, but seeing the evidence laid out in front of him made it all the more real. "Do we have proof of who's behind this?" Musk asked, his voice cold and determined. Adam nodded. "We've traced the money back to a few sources, but we need more to make a solid case. These forces are well organized and they have deep pockets." Gina spoke up, her voice sharp. "We don't have time to play their game. If we sit back and wait for proof, we're going to lose. We need to act, and we need to act fast." Musk's mind raced as he processed the information. This wasn't just a legal issue anymore, it was a battle for the very soul of innovation. He couldn't let these shadowy forces win. He had built SpaceX and Tesla to do the impossible, to redefine what humanity was capable of, and he wasn't about to let them be dragged back into the old ways of doing things. "What's the plan?" Musk asked, his voice resolute. "We need to expose them," Adam said. "We need to make the public aware of the lengths these companies are going to in order to stop progress. If we do it right, we can shift public opinion in our favor." Musk looked at the team around him, his mind now fully engaged. This was going to be a fight on a new front, one that would require more than just cutting-edge technology, it would require a fight for the hearts and minds of the people. The public's support had been critical in pushing Tesla and SpaceX to where they were today, and Musk knew it could be the difference between victory and defeat in this new battle. "All right," Musk said, standing up. "We go public. We tell the world what's happening behind the scenes. And we do it in a way that leaves no doubt about who's trying to stop progress." Gina raised an eyebrow. "You're going to take it to the media?" "I'm going to take it to the people," Musk replied, his eyes burning with determination. "The people who believe in the future, who want to see humanity reach the stars. This is our fight. And we won't let them take it from us." The team nodded in agreement. There was a new energy in the room now, a sense of purpose. Musk had faced down impossible odds before, but this was something else. It was no longer just about changing the world, it was about protecting the very idea of progress from those who would stop at nothing to preserve the status quo. As the meeting broke up, Musk stood in front of the windows, staring out at the horizon once more. This battle wasn't just his, it was the world's. And he was ready to take it on, no matter the cost. "Let's get to work," Musk muttered to himself, the weight of his mission settling firmly on his shoulders. Musk's plan was set in motion faster than he'd anticipated. The world had seen his courtroom victory, but now it was time to reveal the shadows lurking behind the scenes, the unseen forces that sought to undermine everything he had worked for. His lawyers, media teams, and his most trusted advisors were all on high alert, working around the clock to prepare for the launch of his counteroffensive. The media storm that was about to unfold would be unlike any Musk had faced before. It wasn't just a battle for the next big tech breakthrough, it was a fight for the future itself. Musk knew that exposing the powerful figures trying to pull the strings behind his back would be a gamble, but he had never shied away from risk. In fact, it was his willingness to push boundaries, to take chances, that had gotten him this far. As the preparations ramped up, Musk took a moment to reflect on his position. He was sitting in his office at SpaceX headquarters, staring at a holographic model of Mars. The red planet seemed so distant, but it was a goal he could almost touch. He had dedicated his life to it, to ensuring humanity's survival, to creating a future where people could look beyond Earth and dream of something bigger. But dreams were under attack, not just by nature, but by those who clung to their power on Earth. It was hard to comprehend that there were people who feared the progress he championed. And yet, here he was, facing down a shadowy network of elites who would stop at nothing to keep the status quo intact. His phone buzzed with an incoming message from Gwynne Shotwell. She had just finished the final drafts of the exposé they were preparing to release to the public. It would be a carefully crafted narrative, one that would expose the behind-the-scenes manipulation by corporate giants, the lobbying efforts that had been quietly undermining renewable energy, and the efforts to suppress space exploration. "Elon, we're ready," the message read. "I think it's time." Musk didn't hesitate. He quickly gathered his team in the war room. The room was filled with energy, the kind that only came when something big was about to happen. Elon stood at the head of the table, the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders. "All right," he said, addressing the room. "We're about to change the conversation. But we need to do it strategically. This isn't just about exposing the truth, it's about framing the narrative. We need to make people understand that this isn't just an issue of politics or money. It's about the future of humanity." Gina spoke up, her voice steady. "We've got the data and the documents. This isn't speculation, it's fact. But we need to get the public to see the connection between these corporate interests and the policies that are blocking innovation. We need them to understand the stakes." Musk nodded. "Exactly. The message needs to be clear: we are fighting for the future, and anyone who tries to hold us back is standing in the way of progress. We're not just building rockets and electric cars, we're building the future of civilization." Gwynne, who had joined the meeting via video call, added, "We've lined up interviews with key journalists. They'll be the ones to break the story. But the bigger piece, the most critical part, is the media campaign. We need a full-on push from all fronts: social media, TV appearances, op-eds, everything." Musk turned to Adam, who had been working tirelessly on the geopolitical angle. "Adam, what's the latest on the financial networks behind this? Do we have any more concrete links?" "We've traced several money trails to hedge funds and conservative think tanks," Adam replied. "It's all connected to industries that have a vested interest in keeping things the way they are: oil, traditional aerospace, and even some factions within government agencies. But the tricky part is piecing it together in a way that's irrefutable." Musk leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin. He was no stranger to the lengths people would go to protect their power, but the scale of what he was up against was starting to sink in. The stakes had never been higher. "We need to turn this into a movement," he said. "A movement for the future. If people understand what's at risk, they'll rally behind us. But we have to give them something to believe in." The team nodded, understanding the gravity of what Musk was asking. This wouldn't be just another media push, this had to be a rallying cry for change, a call to arms for anyone who believed in the possibility of a better world. The strategy was set. Within hours, the exposé was being released. A combination of hard facts, insider information, and eye-opening documents that painted a stark picture of the corporate and political interests aligned against them. The first piece, a damning investigative report, hit the airwaves and social media like a bombshell. Big corporations exposed: how the fight for the future is being sabotaged by the old guard. The title alone sent shockwaves through the media. Musk knew this would get attention, but he didn't realize just how quickly it would escalate. The report detailed how lobbyists and corporate giants had spent millions to derail renewable energy policies, delayed progress in the electric vehicle industry, and actively blocked space exploration initiatives, including the Mars mission. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Media outlets, both supportive and critical, picked it up and began running with it. Musk's name was on everyone's lips, and suddenly, the fight wasn't just about SpaceX, it was about the future of energy, technology, and even the very direction of civilization. As the report circulated, Musk found himself thrust into countless live interviews. Cameras rolled as he sat in front of reporters, answering questions with calm precision. The world was watching. The pressure was mounting, but Musk didn't flinch. This was his moment to shape the narrative, to show the world that he wasn't just a businessman, he was a man on a mission to change the course of human history. But with every interview, every piece of the exposé that went public, there was a growing sense that the tide was turning. People were beginning to listen. The general public, fed up with the slow pace of progress and the stranglehold of outdated industries, began to rally behind Musk's vision. He was no longer just a tech mogul, he was becoming a symbol of hope for those who wanted a better, brighter future. But Musk knew this was just the beginning. The real battle was only just starting. The forces he had uncovered were not going to go down without a fight. And as the stakes got higher, so did the risks. "Let's see how they react," Musk muttered to himself, his eyes focused on the horizon once more. This was just the beginning, and Musk was ready to take on whatever came next. The exposé had been live for less than 48 hours, and already the world felt different. News anchors debated its implications. Twitter and YouTube were ablaze with support for Musk. Hashtags like #FutureFight and #StandWithElon were trending worldwide. Millions of views poured into videos dissecting the documents, speculating on who had the most to lose if Musk's vision succeeded. But with the rising wave of public support came the inevitable backlash. It started quietly, an anonymous op-ed in a legacy newspaper accusing Musk of manipulating public sentiment and distorting facts. Then came a wave of sudden investigations, routine audits into Tesla's tax filings, safety inspections at SpaceX facilities, and a sudden recall demand on a batch of Tesla vehicles due to what the Department of Transportation vaguely called sensor concerns. Elon had seen tactics like this before, but never all at once. It wasn't random. It was a coordinated counterattack. "Elon, they're trying to bury us in red tape," Gina said as she slammed a folder down on the table in the conference room. "Every agency that's ever had a grudge is coming out of the woodwork." Musk's jaw clenched. "Let them come," he said. "We didn't get this far by backing down. If anything, this proves we've hit a nerve." Adam walked in with a tablet in hand. "You'll want to see this," he said, tapping the screen. A headline appeared from a major news network. "Elon Musk, visionary or manipulative tech tyrant? Former insiders speak out." The article cited anonymous former employees accusing Musk of creating a cult-like work culture and ignoring warning signs in critical safety systems. The piece was clearly designed to undermine not just his company's, but his credibility as a leader. Musk read it silently, then tossed the tablet back to Adam. "That's the best they've got." "It's character assassination," Gina replied. "And it's going to get worse. They want to make you radioactive." But Musk wasn't rattled. He leaned forward, eyes sharp. "This is about fear. They know the system is crumbling, and they're panicking. The only thing more powerful than fear is hope. And right now, we've got millions of people watching us, hoping we don't blink." Still, there was no denying the pressure. Inside Tesla, board members were uneasy. Investors were calling hourly, worried that the political climate could spook shareholders. Even at SpaceX, launch schedules were suddenly under review by newly aggressive regulators. Then came the hack. Late one night, a major Twitter account associated with Neuralink, the neurotechnology company Musk co-founded, was compromised. A cryptic tweet was posted. Elon Musk is not who you think he is. The truth is coming. Within minutes, it went viral. Bots and troll farms swarmed the post, amplifying conspiracy theories about mind control, brain chips, and government manipulation. Elon's PR team issued an immediate statement and regained access to the account, but the damage was done. It was a false flag, Adam said the next morning, pointing to the digital forensics. We traced the IPs to a front in Eastern Europe. Whoever did this has serious resources. And serious reach, Musk muttered. Gina rubbed her temples. This is psychological warfare, Elon. They're not just trying to stop your mission. They're trying to make people afraid of it. The room was silent for a moment. Then Musk stood, pacing slowly as he spoke. You know what the problem is with these people, he said. They think the future is something they can control. That it has to go through their filters, their committees, their approval stamps. But the future doesn't wait. It doesn't ask for permission. Gina looked up. Then what's the play? We can't keep reacting to them. We need to hit back, strategically. Musk turned to the window, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline. We go live. Live? Adam echoed. I'll do a live stream. No scripts, no edits, no PR spin. Just me. Talking directly to the people. I'll tell them what's happening, who's behind it, and what's at stake if we let them win. Gina's eyes lit up. That might actually work. It cuts through the noise. No media filters. No sound bites taken out of context. Adam nodded slowly. It's risky, but it's bold. And it's very Elon Musk. That night, just past 8 p.m. Pacific Time, Elon Musk went live on X, formerly Twitter, YouTube, and every major streaming platform willing to carry it. No flashy graphics. No studio. Just Musk, sitting in a Tesla factory, rows of EVs behind him, arms resting on his knees. He began with a question. What would you do if you knew the people in charge didn't want the future to happen? The stream exploded instantly, millions watching live, with tens of millions more catching the replay in the hours that followed. Musk told the story of what had happened, how corporate forces were trying to stifle innovation, how bureaucracies were weaponized, and how anonymous attacks were meant to silence him. But more importantly, he spoke about why. This isn't about me. It's not about Tesla, or SpaceX, or Neuralink. This is about a war between the past and the future. We've reached a fork in the road. One path leads to progress, to interplanetary life, clean energy, and advanced health technology. The other leads back, to fossil fuels, outdated politics, and controlled narratives. Which one do you want? The comments were flooded with messages of support. From students, engineers, scientists, parents, dreamers, and even from former critics who admitted, I didn't believe in you before, but now I see what you're fighting for. By the time the live stream ended, Musk had reframed the story. He was no longer just defending himself, he had invited the world to join him. The retaliation had failed to crush him. If anything, it had only amplified his voice. As the team huddled around after the stream, Gina turned to him and said, You just turned their attack into your rally cry. Musk smirked. They should have known better than to bet against the future. But deep down, he knew this was just the second act. The real war wasn't over. The giants had awakened, and next, they'd come with everything they had. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Elon Musk was no stranger to disruption. But this was the first time he realized he couldn't do it alone. After the live stream went viral and the world split between those who saw him as a visionary and those who labeled him dangerous, something unexpected began to happen. Other innovators started speaking up. Not random influencers or keyboard warriors, but people with skin in the game. People with power. CEOs, scientists, founders of unicorn startups, voices from deep inside Silicon Valley. One by one, they reached out. Some publicly. Some in private messages. Most started with a variation of the same thing. "You're not crazy, Elon. We've been feeling the heat too." One such call came from Satya Varma, the CEO of a bleeding-edge biotech firm that had been locked in a years-long fight with the FDA over approval for a life-saving gene therapy. "They shut us down after phase 3, Satya said in a secure Zoom call, his voice tight. "Not because of safety. But because our tech would make 4 existing treatments obsolete. You said it on your stream, they don't want the future. They want control." Elon nodded. "Then why don't we fight back together?" That was the moment the idea was born, a coalition of futurists. By the end of the week, over a dozen high-profile technologists had quietly joined the cause. A distributed alliance of minds. Engineers. Visionaries. Activists. Even a few former rivals. Musk's battle wasn't just his anymore, it was becoming a full-scale movement. They called it Project Momentum. It wasn't a company, not officially. It was a loose federation with one common mission: dismantle the invisible handcuffs on innovation. Every member had a story: delays, denials, lawsuits, smear campaigns. It wasn't just Elon who had been targeted. He had simply been loud enough to draw the spotlight. Gina sat in a boardroom at Tesla HQ, surrounded by whiteboards and exhausted team members, listening as each new partner shared their data. Adam stood near the screen, connecting the dots, literally. He mapped the lobbying connections, tracing money trails between regulators, media outlets, and corporations with billion-dollar reasons to delay progress. "It's all connected," he said. "From oil interests to legacy automakers to pharmaceutical monopolies. It's a soft war against the future, and we just lit a fire under it." Musk leaned over the table. "Then let's stop playing defense. We go all in. Data dumps, whistleblowers, real stories, let's show the world what progress really looks like, and who's trying to kill it." But this time, the attack wouldn't be Musk-centered. He would amplify it, but he wouldn't be the only voice. That was the genius of it. Gina tapped into her media network. She lined up exclusive interviews with brilliant but under-the-radar figures, like the AI scientist who'd been blacklisted for advocating autonomous surgical bots, or the robotics engineer whose self-replicating drone swarm had been shelved for national security reasons. These weren't fringe people. They were the next Teslas and SpaceXs in the making, but they'd been buried. And now, they were coming into the light. 3 days later, Project Momentum went live. Musk hosted the event himself, broadcasting from Starbase in Texas under the vast black sky, a gleaming rocket behind him. But this time, he wasn't the star of the show. Instead, each segment featured another voice, someone with a suppressed breakthrough, someone who had been stifled not by failure, but by fear-based systems. One speaker was Dr. Alexis Rourke, a physicist who discovered a way to generate near-zero loss energy transfer using quantum spin fields. Her research had been purchased and buried by a legacy utility conglomerate. She held up the NDA they'd forced her to sign and tore it in half live on stream. "I was told this would disrupt the market too much." That's exactly the point. If innovation makes people uncomfortable, good. Comfort is killing us. Another speaker, a soft-spoken coder named Levi Hahn, revealed that his blockchain-based voting system, one that could eliminate election fraud, had been national security flagged and banned from even being discussed in universities. "We're not talking about fear of bad actors," Levi said. "We're talking about fear of transparency." By the end of the stream, nearly 100 million people had watched live. Twitter was exploding. TikTok was a storm of "what else are they hiding" videos. YouTube had already clipped it into digestible pieces, spreading like wildfire across feeds and news cycles. And the narrative shifted. It was no longer just Elon Musk versus the establishment. It was the future versus fear. That same night, an encrypted message landed in Musk's inbox. No name. Just a simple subject line. They're watching. Attached was a zip file. Inside, surveillance images of key Project Momentum members, taken in public without their knowledge. License plates. Home addresses. Meeting locations. Gina reviewed the files with a pale face. This isn't just opposition. This is intimidation. Adam traced the metadata and confirmed the files had been pulled from a private security firm with ties to one of the very conglomerates named in the exposé. They're not going to take this quietly, he said. We just turned the spotlight on $1 billion machine. And now it's coming. But Musk didn't flinch. If anything, he looked more focused than ever. I'd be worried if they didn't come, he said. Now we know we're hitting the right nerves. He looked to Gina and Adam. Double our cybersecurity. Keep eyes on everyone in Project Momentum. No one gets left out in the cold. Then he paused, thinking aloud. They want to play dirty. Let's give them a reason to panic. Let's announce something so big, so impossible, that it forces them to make their next move in the daylight. Gina raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? Musk grinned. That infamous, almost childlike grin. A crude Mars flyby. 18 months from now. Full international live stream. And we let the world vote on the crew. Adam's jaw dropped. That's insane. Musk nodded. Exactly. Let's show them the future is unstoppable. And just like that, the next phase began. You want to shake the system? Announce something so big, so outlandish, that the only thing crazier than doing it, is not doing it. Elon Musk. The world had barely caught its breath from the Project Momentum broadcast when Elon dropped the next bombshell. In a press conference streamed from Starbase, flanked by gleaming spacecraft and massive LED renderings of Mars, he leaned into the mic, eyes scanning the crowd of stunned journalists and live stream viewers. In 18 months, SpaceX will launch the first crewed flyby mission around Mars. And here's the twist, the world will vote on who goes. The silence that followed was deafening. And then came the tidal wave, cheers, gasps, disbelief, panic, and hope, everything at once. Musk didn't flinch. This won't be government-selected astronauts or billionaires buying their way aboard. We'll select a diverse team of scientists, engineers, storytellers, and thinkers. And people everywhere, from any country, any background, will have a say in who represents humanity. He paused, letting it sink in. This is not a stunt. This is the future. You either come with us, or get left behind. Within hours, the internet was ablaze. Some called it the most ambitious mission since the moon landing. Others claimed Musk had finally gone mad. The usual critics hit their talking points: irresponsible, dangerous, unrealistic. But the movement Musk had ignited couldn't be silenced now. People around the globe flooded SpaceX's servers to nominate friends, loved ones, or themselves. Social media was filled with videos, teachers, artists, climate activists, refugee children, poets, each making a case for why they should represent Earth. A hashtag trended for days. Hashtag #SendMeToMars. The world's imagination had been reignited. But behind the inspiration, behind the hope, there was fear. Not from the people, but from those who saw what this mission really was, a direct challenge to their control. And they weren't going to let it go unanswered. The next morning, Gina burst into Musk's office, phone in hand, her face tight. We've got a problem. A big one. What now? Elon asked, not even looking up from the rocket blueprint on his desk. 2 major aerospace contractors just filed injunctions to block your Mars mission on grounds of unfair advantage and public endangerment. And that's not all. There's a new Senate hearing scheduled, one exclusively to investigate SpaceX's regulatory practices. They're calling it, the Mars Reckoning. Musk finally looked up. Perfect. Let them come. Gina frowned. They're pulling every string they have. They're scared, Elon. You've gone from annoying them to threatening their legacy. They're going to throw everything they've got at this. But Musk was already pulling up a new slide on his tablet. It was a bold mock-up of the Freedom Crew campaign, an international initiative for public voting on the Mars flyby crew. I want to partner with education platforms, global NGOs, and science outreach programs. Turn this into a global effort. Make it impossible for them to shut it down without looking like the villains they are. Adam, who had just walked in, added, and we've confirmed something else. Several journalists covering the upcoming hearings. They're on corporate payrolls. The media war is coming too. So we do what we always do, Musk said calmly. We tell a better story than they do. Within the week, the Freedom Crew initiative launched publicly with the biggest cross-platform campaign in SpaceX history. Every video, every ad, every piece of content drove one simple question. If humanity could send 5 people to represent us near Mars, who would you choose? Giant LED billboards lit up in Times Square, Sao Paulo, Mumbai, and Nairobi. Celebrities weighed in. Scientists posted reaction videos. SpaceX's site for crew applications crashed within 36 hours due to traffic overload. It was no longer just a mission. It was a global story. And the story threatened everything those in power had worked to control. Far from public view, meetings were being held behind locked doors. High-ranking officials from regulatory agencies, lobbyists from legacy aerospace firms, and intelligence officers gathered around a private table. This Mars stunt cannot go forward, said one suited man with a classified badge clipped to his tie. If the public sees SpaceX succeed without government oversight, it destroys our grip on space policy. Another added, if he makes this work, especially with global civilian crew selection, it sets a precedent we can't control. There was a brief silence. Then came a chilling proposal. We don't need to stop the mission. Just, delay it long enough to make it fall apart from within. Back at Starbase, things were already getting complicated. A key supplier for the next-gen heat shield materials suddenly pulled out, citing unexpected shortages. A scheduled Falcon test was mysteriously grounded by new FAA regulations citing weather anomalies. And 2 of the top candidates for the Freedom Crew reported being followed. The message was clear, you may have the people, but we still run the game. But Musk wasn't rattled. In a quiet meeting with Adam, Gina, and the Project Momentum core team, he laid it out. They're going to play dirty, he said. They want us to back down. To delay. To hesitate. But that's when we go faster. He looked at a live feed of the Starship prototype being assembled. The only thing more dangerous than a government afraid of progress, is one that knows it can't stop it. With zero warning, he tweeted. Starship will be ready in 9 months. Earlier if the Senate wants to come along for the ride. Smiling face with sunglasses #Freedom Crew #MarsOrBust. The tweet broke the internet. It also lit a fire under everyone trying to stop him. Behind closed doors, a plan began to form. Something big. Something that would go beyond smear campaigns and legal blocks. Something that would strike at the heart of the mission. But Musk wasn't afraid. He was used to threats. What they didn't know was, he had one more ace up his sleeve. And when it played out, the entire world would witness the kind of disruption no one, not even Elon's enemies, could stop. Every great mission has its traitor. As SpaceX ramped up its most daring campaign yet, selecting a public crew for the first ever Mars flyby, there was a quiet sense of unease beneath the excitement. Security was tighter. Communications were encrypted. Background checks on new hires tripled. Yet Elon Musk knew something didn't feel right. The louder the dream, the quieter the threat, he muttered one night, walking the starbase floor alone. He'd learned this truth the hard way. Success didn't just attract followers, it attracted infiltrators. And now, someone was already inside. Late one evening, a SpaceX systems engineer named Jules Ramirez was running diagnostics on a secondary propulsion subsystem when she noticed an anomaly. It wasn't huge, just a line of code that didn't match the version logged in GitHub. A small discrepancy. Almost elegant. But Jules wasn't just any engineer. She was one of the few who had worked on the Falcon 9's self-destruct override code. She knew what sabotage looked like, especially when it was meant to blend in. She flagged it up the chain fast. 2 hours later, Adam had the entire threat analytics team in a war room, combing through logs and access credentials. What they found made the room go silent. Someone had accessed the propulsion control protocols 2 nights earlier using a cloned admin credential. Someone who knew exactly what to change, and what not to change. It's subtle, Adam explained to Musk. But if Jules hadn't caught it, the system would have failed during the Mars approach window. Not an explosion, but a slow drift off course. A non-recoverable flyby. Musk's expression darkened. So they wouldn't kill the mission. Just embarrass us. Make us look incompetent. Gina shook her head. Or worse, make it look like public involvement caused the failure. The implications were chilling. If SpaceX launched with even one compromised line of code, millions of lives and the dream of Mars would become a punchline. A meme. Another, I told you so, for the establishment. It wasn't just sabotage, it was strategic character assassination. Adam launched a quiet internal audit. No press, no leaks, no alarms. They had to find the saboteur before they acted again, or before they vanished into the shadows. That's when they found him. Name, Evan Kessler. Position, Systems Architecture Consultant. Tenure, 11 weeks. Resume. Impeccable. References. Flawless. Except, one reference never answered the phone. Digging deeper, they uncovered something chilling. Evan had once worked under a defense contractor linked to a classified aerospace division, a group suspected of quietly funding regulatory interference against SpaceX. We've got a spook, Adam whispered. A sleeper agent. Musk didn't react at first. He simply turned to Gina. You said they were afraid, right? That they'd come at us sideways. Yeah. Well, this is what desperation looks like. Instead of pulling Evan out immediately, Musk devised something bolder. He invited him to a private briefing at Starbase, under the guise of reviewing flight safety protocols with Elon himself. Evan arrived, cool and calm. Nothing in his expression betrayed worry. But as he entered the sleek glass conference room, he realized he wasn't alone. Gina, Adam, Jules, and 3 members of SpaceX security stood by. Elon stepped forward. Evan, thanks for coming. Before we begin, I just have one question. He tossed a tablet onto the table, screen facing up. On it? The exact line of modified propulsion code. Highlighted. Did you write this? There was a long silence. Evan's eyes didn't even flicker. You've got the wrong guy, he said. Looks like a version control mix-up. Jules stepped forward. That line wasn't in any version. Not in staging. Not in production. Not anywhere, until your login pushed it through. Still, Evan kept calm. I don't know what game this is, but... Musk cut him off. We're not playing a game. We're playing for the future. That's when Gina dropped the bombshell, surveillance footage from the server room 2 nights earlier. Evan, alone. Late. No legitimate access needed. His face changed. The arrogance melted, replaced by cold silence. All right, he said softly. Guess I underestimated how much you were watching. Or how little you understand about why we're doing this, Musk replied. Evan stood up, his hands raised. I've already delivered my message. It won't stop with me. Gina stepped forward. You're right. It won't. Evan was detained, and the incident kept out of the media, at least for now. Behind the scenes, SpaceX quietly purged every system he'd touched, launched a full forensic audit, and upgraded all systems with biometric access protocols. But the damage was psychological, not technical. We thought the war would come from Washington or Wall Street, Adam said later that night, but it's here, inside our walls. They're getting smarter. Musk nodded, eyes locked on the Starship prototype through a window. Its nose cone shimmered under floodlights. Which means we're getting close. Too close. For the first time in years, Elon Musk issued a full internal lockdown of mission data. No USBs. No external logins. Full background checks, even on long-time employees. Every engineer had to re-verify access. It was wartime protocol. But not everyone agreed with it. Morale dipped. Some staff questioned whether the dream had gotten too dangerous. So Musk did what only he could do. He called an all-hands. Standing on a scaffold inside the Starship hangar, Elon Musk looked out at hundreds of workers, engineers, coders, welders, people who had given years of their lives for this mission. Yes, we found a saboteur. And yes, it rattled us. But that's because what we're building here matters more than anything else happening on this planet. They fear us because we're not controlled. Because our mission isn't profitable, it's unifying. Because this rocket, this team, isn't just launching a spacecraft. It's launching a new era. A hush fell over the crowd. If anyone here doubts why we're doing this, go. No shame. But if you believe, like I do, that the human spirit belongs among the stars, then stay. Stay and build. People didn't leave. They stayed. They built. Because this wasn't just Musk's dream anymore. It belonged to all of them. When they can't beat your ideas, they try to put you on trial. Gina Vaughn. The hearing room was designed for theater. Deep oak wood. Polished brass. American flags perfectly placed behind the towering bench of senators. The cameras were already rolling before Elon Musk even walked in, capturing every inch of the moment, the world's most controversial innovator sitting in the nation's most public hot seat. He wasn't there by invitation. He was there under subpoena. The official reason? A review of safety, ethics, and transparency related to SpaceX's upcoming crewed Mars flyby and Project Momentum's influence on public policy. But anyone watching knew what it really was. A political ambush. In the days leading up to the hearing, media headlines grew more aggressive. Elon Musk's global popularity threatens government oversight. SpaceX's Mars stunt, science or spectacle. Musk's civilian space crew could spark a catastrophe in orbit. But Musk didn't flinch. Dressed in a black suit, no tie, hands calmly folded as he waited for the hearing to begin, he was the image of composed defiance. Gina sat behind him. Adam flanked her. The rest of the Project Momentum team watched via live streams from around the world. The chairwoman, Senator Helen Gable, a veteran lawmaker known for her ties to aerospace contractors, rapped the gavel sharply. Mr. Musk, let's begin. It started civil, almost polite. Mr. Musk, can you explain how the public selection process for the Mars mission ensures crew safety? Yes, Musk replied coolly. Each candidate undergoes rigorous training and medical screening, same as traditional astronauts. The only difference is who gets to dream big enough to go. The senator frowned. You think democracy should decide who goes to space? I think democracy should matter in everything we build, he said. Including the stars. The crowd behind him rippled with quiet awe. On social media, #ElonInDC was trending within minutes. But the niceties didn't last long. Senator Randall Blythe, a longtime critic of Musk and recipient of sizable donations from legacy aerospace firms, leaned into the mic. "Mr. Musk, are you aware that one of your engineers sabotaged internal systems just weeks ago?" Musk didn't blink. "Yes. And we caught him before he could do damage. Which is more than I can say for some government systems I've seen." A gasp rippled through the room. Blythe didn't back down. "Your arrogance is astonishing. Do you think private citizens should have the right to launch missions that could influence geopolitics?" "I think private citizens should absolutely challenge systems that fear change," Musk fired back. "Geopolitics are already influenced by oil, war, and monopolies. Maybe it's time space influenced them back." Gina whispered to Adam, "He's not holding back." Adam grinned. "He never does." Midway through the hearing, Senator Gable dropped her bombshell. A confidential, internal memo was leaked, conveniently during the hearing, suggesting that Project Momentum had received anonymous cryptocurrency donations from foreign sources. Gable held up the document like it was a smoking gun. "Mr. Musk, is your Mars campaign being funded by entities outside the United States?" Musk smirked. "Are we talking about crypto donations from fans in Argentina? Because if so, I'm guilty. Also of inspiring engineers in India and dreamers in Nigeria. The future isn't limited by borders. Only fear is." Gable's jaw tightened. She motioned to cut his mic, but the damage was done. Online, a storm erupted. Musk versus the machine. The dream on trial. Let Elon speak. The hearing reached its climax when Senator Blythe leaned in and snarled. "You've turned a space mission into a popularity contest. You've undermined government authority. And you've made yourself into a messiah for tech-obsessed teenagers. Do you think you're above this country's laws?" Musk leaned forward, voice low, but powerful enough to silence the room. "No, Senator. I think I'm beneath them. I think we all are, when we forget what they're supposed to stand for. Innovation. Freedom. Vision. We used to dream in this country. Now we prosecute the people who still do." He paused. "So no, I'm not above the law. But I am ahead of the curve. And the curve is coming whether this room is ready or not." Boom. The hearing room fell into stunned silence. Behind the scenes, Gina's phone blew up. Donations surged. A record number of Freedom Crew applications flooded the servers. The movement was bigger than ever. But not everyone was celebrating. Because in another room, on another secure line, a group of officials spoke in hushed voices. He turned the hearing into a campaign rally. "We can't out-talk him. We'll have to outmaneuver him. And what about the launch? We delay it. One way or another." Back at Starbase, Musk met with the team. "They're going to keep trying," Adam said. "I hope they do," Elon replied. "Because the more they push, the clearer it gets." "Clearer?" Gina asked. "That we're not asking permission anymore. We're building the future, and we're doing it now." And somewhere, behind the scenes, an urgent order was drafted. Commence Operation Eclipse. But Musk had plans of his own. And the next move would change everything. They couldn't beat the dream in public, so now they're trying to kill it in the dark. Gina Vaughn. The morning after the Senate hearing, a chill ran through Starbase. Not in the air, but in the energy. It wasn't just politics anymore. It wasn't even personal. This had become war. And Elon Musk knew it. He stood on the gantry platform overlooking Starship, the spacecraft destined to carry the Freedom Crew on its historic Mars flyby. It was nearly complete. Gleaming. Alive. Every day brought it closer to launch readiness. But now, it wasn't just racing against engineering challenges, it was racing against sabotage. Because somewhere, beyond Starbase, Operation Eclipse had begun. Adam didn't mean to stumble onto it. He was deep in the data, monitoring mentions of SpaceX across darknet forums, fringe journalist feeds, and whistleblower channels, when a strange PDF landed in an encrypted Dropbox he monitored. No subject line. No sender. Just one title on the file. Operation Eclipse, Strategic Interruption Protocol. Adam's stomach dropped. He opened it and scanned line after line of classified memos, blacked-out names, and chilling objectives. Coordinate regulatory delays under safety review codes. Encourage media amplification of potential crew instability. Engage foreign allies to question international airspace risks. Apply pressure to third-party suppliers, legal if possible, financial if not. It was a coordinated playbook. Not to destroy SpaceX physically, but to strangle the mission quietly, one thread at a time. Gina reviewed it that night, hands shaking. This isn't coming from a company. This is a task force. A Shadow One, Adam said. With a blank check and no face. Elon read the file in silence. Then, calmly, they just confirmed something I've suspected for years. What's that? Gina asked. They fear what they don't control. And they can't control this. Over the next 2 weeks, everything that could go wrong, did. A container of critical components for the Starship's life support system was suddenly held at customs under suspicion of undeclared lithium derivatives. No warning. No paper trail. 3 crew finalists for the Freedom crew received threatening letters at their homes, letters written in different languages, clearly meant to scare. SpaceX's social media accounts were mysteriously flagged for incitement of mass hysteria, after a viral tweet featuring a render of the ship with the tagline, "Humanity goes next." Then came the worst. The reason? An anonymous report suggesting possible psychological instability among potential Freedom crew candidates. Unverified. No source. No evidence, Gina growled, slamming the letter down in Elon's office. They're using our transparency against us. And they think we'll blink, Elon muttered. But he didn't blink. He accelerated. To counter the FAA freeze, Musk unveiled a bombshell of his own, a global partnership with neuroscientists and psychologists from MIT, Oxford, and Stanford to document the training and mental health of every finalist in the Freedom crew. Every candidate would be tracked, tested, supported, and evaluated, publicly. This isn't a liability, Elon said during a live stream. It's a mirror. Let the world see what humans can become when they're pushed to their best. He didn't stop there. He opened a new camera feed, inside the training module. Viewers could now watch real-time footage of the candidates learning zero-gravity adaptation, performing teamwork tasks, running simulations. The numbers exploded. Within 48 hours, the Freedom crew live stream had over 300 million views. The media couldn't ignore it. What began as a fringe space mission had become a global human interest story. Everyone had a favorite finalist. Kids in schools wrote letters to their picks. Talk show hosts debated the mission like it was the Olympics. Operation Eclipse's biggest weapon, silence, was breaking down. Because the one thing it couldn't survive was a spotlight. One night, Gina got a call from a blocked number. The voice was scrambled, modulated. Tell Musk they're preparing to frame the launch as a hostile event. They'll use international safety claims. Say it violates airspace protocols. Don't let them isolate you. Then, click. That same night, a private legal team in D.C. filed an emergency injunction demanding that the UN intervene to stop the mission, citing unilateral planetary interference without international consensus. It was absurd. But powerful. Gina stormed into Musk's quarters. They're trying to block the launch from the entire world. If they can't kill the ship, they'll kill the right to launch it. Musk was quiet. Then he said something that made Gina pause. Then maybe it's time we take this to the only authority that still matters. She blinked. Which one? The people. The next day, Musk made another bold announcement. A new live stream, the People's Countdown. Every day leading up to launch, the public would vote on a major decision, the final crew members, music played inside the ship, camera angles, colors of the flight suits, the order of speeches, even what message to beam back to Earth as the ship passed Mars. This isn't just a launch, Musk said. This is humanity taking the wheel. Operation Eclipse tried to choke the mission with bureaucracy. But Musk did what he always did, turned it into a story the system couldn't out-narrate. The launch was still weeks away. And now, according to new intel from Adam, Operation Eclipse had shifted to its final phase. An inside attack. They couldn't stop us from building it. They couldn't stop us from telling the world. So now, they're coming for the launch itself. Sabotage doesn't always look like an explosion. Sometimes it's a delay. A glitch. A whisper that turns into doubt. Adam Pearce. The countdown had officially begun. T-21 days to launch. Across the globe, the People's Countdown had become more than a campaign, it was a cultural phenomenon. Classroom walls in Peru, Ghana, Japan, and Kansas displayed massive posters of the starship. Schools were hosting Mars Day events. Couples were getting engaged under sky projections of the crew's renderings. One viral TikTok even featured a grandmother in Italy knitting a scarf with the launch date on it. The mission was no longer SpaceX's. It belonged to the world. But for every cheer and every hashtag, there was a shadow moving closer. Gina was the first to notice it, small inconsistencies in the supply manifests. An inventory list that was off by one processor. A coolant system valve that wasn't aligned with spec. These aren't mistakes, she said. They're probes. Someone's testing our detection systems. Adam nodded grimly. Operation Eclipse isn't gone. It's evolved. And now they've got one shot left, stop the rocket from ever leaving the pad. They pulled the team into a private war room, no comms, no digital records. Only the core engineers, Gina, Adam, and Elon. We've checked the flight software 5 times, said Leia, the AI systems lead. No code anomalies. And hardware? Elon asked. Clean, said Jules, the propulsion engineer. But I'm telling you, it feels too clean. They all knew it. The final phase of Operation Eclipse wouldn't be digital. It would be tangible. Physical. Real. It had to be. The alert came at 3:13 a.m. An unauthorized vehicle breached the outer perimeter of Starbase. No ID. No radio response. It stopped 200 yards from the engine test bay, then reversed and fled before security could reach it. They caught it on drone footage, 2 men in maintenance gear, wearing masks. The vehicle was stolen from a supplier's off-site warehouse. This wasn't a break-in, Adam said. It was recon. The next day, internal email servers were flooded with phishing attempts disguised as logistics updates from NASA. They're escalating, Gina warned. Trying to cause chaos. Confusion. A single bad click, and they're in. Elon's response was classic. Let them come. They'll run out of ammo before we run out of dream. Despite everything, the world voted. After more than 1.2 billion total votes across 137 countries, the final Freedom Crew was chosen. Dr. Liana Zhou, biomedical engineer from Taiwan. Javier Silva, exoplanetary geologist from Brazil. Kira Johnson, poet and educator from Detroit. Mohammed El Sayed, refugee-turned-astronomer from Syria. Vera Mendez, South African robotics expert. Each a symbol. Each a story. In their first press conference, they stood united under the mission banner, "We go not for one nation, but for all of Earth." But beneath the applause, the danger sharpened. During a routine pre-launch simulation, a massive alert triggered on the flight management computer. Autopilot failure, thruster calibration error. The entire command floor froze. If that error happened during launch or entry, the ship could tumble out of trajectory. Game over. But there was a problem: the software hadn't been touched in 48 hours. No patches. No changes. Adam's team ran diagnostics. Every checksum matched. Every line of code was intact. And yet, the error had still occurred. False flag, Elon said, standing behind the screen. They're testing how we react. Trying to spook us into grounding ourselves. So what do we do? Leia asked. Musk turned, calm and firm. We build in redundancy. Triple failovers. Isolate every system. If they want to stop this launch, they'll need to sabotage physics. With just over a week to go, Musk authorized Lockdown Protocol Echo, a rarely used full-scale isolation of all launch-critical infrastructure. All data systems were disconnected from external networks. All physical access to Starship was restricted to 21 verified personnel. All communications ran through encrypted quantum relays, donated by a private research partner. A space vault was formed around the mission. But the paranoia came at a cost. Morale dipped. Some engineers began to second-guess every reading. Suppliers got nervous. The Freedom crew felt the pressure. They trained harder, but the eyes on them weren't just watching for inspiration now. They were watching for any excuse to pull the plug. Gina received a package. No sender. No return address. Inside, a single USB drive and a handwritten note. The clock is ticking. You'll never launch. Someone inside is going to make sure of it. The drive contained high-resolution photos from inside the Starship assembly bay, photos that no one outside the core team could have taken. There's still a leak, Adam muttered. Even after all this. No, Elon said. There's a plant. Not a saboteur, we caught that already. This is someone with access, but not for long. That night, Elon made a choice. He ordered a decoy launch sequence, a full rehearsal coded to trigger a fake hardware error only if a specific user account logged in to override a subsystem. The next day, it happened. Someone tried to fix the fake error, revealing themselves in the process. It wasn't a tech. It wasn't a contractor. It was a NASA liaison embedded months ago under the guise of interagency cooperation. Security took him into custody without incident. When asked why he did it, he simply said, "They told me if this ship launched, it would make nations irrelevant." Elon's reply, as he walked past him. It's not about making nations irrelevant. It's about making humanity infinite. With the last shadow removed, the ship was cleared for final pre-flight. The world watched. In Times Square, countdown clocks replaced billboards. On Instagram, over 3 million users posted under hashtag #MarsEve. In war zones, refugee camps, and rural schools, people huddled around phones and radios. Because tomorrow, for the first time in human history, a mission born from the will of the people, not governments, not corporations, would take us to the edge of another world. There's a silence before launch that feels like the universe holding its breath, not in fear, but in awe. Dr. Liana Zhou. The countdown echoed across every screen, every speaker, every live feed across the planet. The Freedom crew was locked in. The Starship stood vertical, taller than any building in the region, gleaming like a silver arrow aimed at forever. Above it, the sky was clear. Below it, the world waited. And not just waited, believed. For the first time in decades, the divisions of Earth blurred. No one cared about political parties, time zones, or who controlled the launch pad. In alleyways and palaces, school gyms and military bases, people watched the same numbers drop in unison. It wasn't a launch. It was a global pause. Kira Johnson, the poet-turned-astronaut, gripped the edge of her console and looked out the porthole. The Gulf of Mexico sparkled below. "This is it," she whispered. "This is really it." Across from her, Javier Silva gave a shaky laugh. "I thought I'd be crying or throwing up by now." Liana smiled gently. "Give it time. We've still got 9 minutes." Each crew member wore a white pressure suit lined with smart textile sensors. Their vitals streamed live to mission control, and to the world. Real-time oxygen levels. Heart rate. Brainwave patterns. Humanity wasn't just watching the rocket. It was watching itself. Range is green. Weather is go. "No anomalies on the pad," said Jules, her voice steady as steel. "Final propulsion check complete," added Leia from engineering. Adam stood just behind Elon Musk in the control booth, both staring at the launch interface. "You nervous?" Adam asked quietly. Elon gave a half shrug. "Not really." "You're lying." "Absolutely." A few feet away, Gina had her headset on, eyes locked on the data stream. "Copy that," she said into the mic, "crew vitals optimal." "Confirming with med techs." Then she paused. Her eyes widened slightly. Guys?" Everyone turned. "There's something in the vitals." Crew member Mohammed El Sayed's heart rate had spiked, fast. His adrenaline levels were surging beyond acceptable pre-launch thresholds. A warning flashed. Inside the capsule, Mohammed was shaking. Eyes wide. Breaths short. Gina's voice crackled in. "Mohammed, this is Gina. I'm reading a spike. Are you okay?" No response. "Mohammed, can you hear me?" Still nothing. Then. I'm fine. I just can't feel my legs." "Hold at T-7 minutes and 30 seconds, Jules ordered. "Medical emergency." Alarms began flashing across internal systems. Medics scrambled in mission control. The live stream cut to an interstitial screen, "Please stand by," as the world collectively gasped. Musk leaned forward. "Can we get him out in time?" Adam whispered, "No. We're past cabin pressure sink. He's locked in." Inside the capsule, Kira grabbed Mohammed's hand. Hey. Stay with me, all right? Just breathe. One breath at a time." Tears welled in his eyes. "I don't want to ruin this." "I'm sorry." Liana looked over at the monitor. "He's crashing." Gina barked into the mic. "Mohammed, listen to me. You are not ruining anything. This is part of the mission. You are part of the mission." From the backup station, a team of neuroscientists jumped in. Rapid adrenaline onset. Classic hyperstimulation response. He's not physically compromised, he's psychologically locked. Can we counter it? With sensory grounding and a voice he trusts. Gina took off her headset, stepped forward, and switched to a direct audio channel. She spoke softly, like a friend. "Mohammed. It's Gina. You're scared. That's okay. You've carried 1,000 lifetimes of pain and hope and burden to get to this moment. But you don't have to carry it alone anymore. This mission isn't riding on your shoulders, it's riding with you. We're all here. With you. For you." Inside the capsule, Mohammed's eyes steadied. Kira squeezed his hand again. "You got this." Vera reached over and touched his shoulder. "We're not going without you." His heart rate dropped. Oxygen levels normalized. Then. "This is Mohammed. I'm okay. I'm here. Let's fly." Mission control roared. "Vitals stable. Cleared for resume, confirmed medical. Ground systems go." Pad clear, said Leia. Propulsion go, added Jules. Musk gave a soft smile. Then let's light the sky. The Freedom crew locked hands across the cabin. A circle. No rank. No fear. For Earth, said Liana. For each other, said Vera. For the future, said Javier. For the kids who were told no, Kira added, tears in her eyes. Muhammad just whispered, let's make history. Cameras zoomed in on the pad. Exhaust vents hissed. Supercooled liquid oxygen began to plume beneath the rocket. In Times Square, the crowd counted aloud. In Tokyo, neon buildings flashed each second. In a cave shelter in Syria, a boy clutched his radio. 10. 9. 8. Musk didn't blink. Gina squeezed Adam's hand. 7. 6. 5. A thunder built beneath the starship, the sound of 33 Raptor engines preparing to awaken. 4. 3. 2. 1. Ignition sequence start. Starship rose from the Earth like a flame-covered comet, pushing 5,000 tons of dreams into the sky. People screamed. Sobbed. Held each other. And for the first time since the moon landings, Earth felt like one world again. Getting off Earth was never the hard part. The hard part is what's waiting out there. Elon Musk. The Freedom crew floated in near-zero gravity, untethered from Earth for the first time. It was beautiful. No rumble. No pressure. Just silence. Through the main viewport, they watched the blue curve of Earth shrink into a perfect sphere. Kira wept openly. That's what we've been fighting over. That little marble. Javier nodded. And now we're finally beyond it. Inside Mission Control, cheers had faded to quiet focus. The world had celebrated. Now came the hard part, the journey. But even as the crew relaxed into orbit, a set of hidden variables, buried so deep in the mission architecture that even some of Musk's inner circle didn't know, were beginning to unfold. And not all of them were intentional. The night before liftoff, Gina had received a private transmission. It wasn't from Starbase. It came from an old SpaceX relay in the Indian Ocean, only used for deep-sky autonomous probes. The message was only 3 words long. Trajectory compromised. Caution. No sender. No encryption. And worse, no confirmation. She'd taken it to Elon immediately. They're bluffing, Adam said. Trying to psych us out before the biggest moment of the mission. But Musk had gone silent. He pulled up the navigation protocol, ran the trajectory simulations again, and just stared at the screen. Finally, he said. We're not changing course. But we double every redundancy. And if anything goes wrong, they'll think we knew. Gina didn't understand what that meant, until now. A sensor alert pinged inside the ship. Unidentified mass on flight path, vector 0.2 degrees deviation. Leia's voice came over from ground control. Calm. Even. But tighter than usual. Freedom crew, confirm you're receiving a proximity alert. Liana checked the console. Confirmed. It's about 400 kilometers ahead, high velocity, no transponder signature. Muhammad squinted at the radar. Could it be a satellite? No satellite moves like that, said Javier. Not that fast. Not that low. Gina and Adam were already pulling data from NORAD databases. Nothing registered. Whatever it is, Gina whispered, it wasn't there during the last simulation. Then came something worse. It wasn't moving away. It was aligning. Adam launched a deep dive into the code stack running onboard guidance. That's when he saw it. A buried set of directives, lines of code written in a signature that only one person could have authored. Elon. Auto div, initiate 47 if vector deviates from public trajectory. A shadow trajectory. A backup route, pre-programmed months ago. A completely different orbital arc that split from the public flight path just after passing the moon. Why the hell is this in here? Adam asked. Gina looked up from her terminal. You mean, this mission was never going exactly where we said it was? Adam stared at the flight sim. It's not just a flyby. He's taking them somewhere. Gina didn't wait. She stormed into Elon's office. You lied. To the team. To the world. To us. What's really going on? Musk didn't flinch. I didn't lie. I protected it. Protected what? The truth. This mission isn't just about Mars. It's about testing if we can survive being truly independent of Earth, and untraceable. Not just from governments, but from those who might try to claim what's next. Gina's voice dropped to a hiss. You're saying there's something out there you didn't trust the world to know. Elon stepped to a screen and tapped a feed, classified footage of a dark, fast-moving object gliding past the moon's dark side. Not a satellite. Not space junk. We found it 3 years ago. It's not natural. It's not ours. And it hasn't responded to any signal we've sent. He turned to her, serious now. I needed to know if it was watching. The public flyby gave us cover. But the real mission is to go closer. The crew didn't know any of this, yet. But they did know something wasn't right. Liana and Javier were now tracking the object's movement. It was matching velocity. Slowly. Carefully. Kira frowned. I thought space was mostly empty. Muhammad muttered, apparently we're not alone. Then came Leia's voice again. Freedom Crew, we are updating your vector. You are now on primary 2 course. Autopilot transition in T-30 seconds. Javier blinked. Primary 2. Inside mission control, a choice loomed. Gina stared at Elon. Are we going to tell them? He shook his head. Not yet. Back on Earth, amateur astronomers noticed it first. The trajectory of the Freedom mission was off. Slightly, but verifiably. Forums lit up. Reddit exploded. The flight path doesn't match public data. Why did SpaceX alter course after lunar alignment? Are they aborting to deep orbit? Then a bold new theory went viral. Musk lied. They're not going to Mars. Facing mounting public questions, the Freedom Crew agreed to a special message, live, unfiltered. Kira floated before the camera. To everyone watching, we know you have questions. So do we. We're following a course we were told was safe and secure. If it's more than that, we'll find out together. Javier leaned into frame. We came here to make history. We didn't expect to be in a mystery. And then, quietly, Liana added. If we don't come back, don't stop dreaming. Just, ask why. As the live stream closed, an alert appeared in red across the internal ship monitors. Unknown signal detected, source vector, matching trajectory. Muhammad said what everyone was thinking. We're not alone out here. In space, you don't get second chances. You get silence, or a signal. Javier Silva. The Freedom Crew was now officially off script. The new trajectory, primary 2 course, was no longer heading directly for Mars. Instead, it bent subtly around the moon's gravity, slingshotting the starship toward a shadowed region of space, known only to a select few. The world didn't know it yet, but the crew was now on a collision course with a mystery older than the mission itself. And they weren't alone. Onboard sensors kept pinging the same alert. Unidentified transmission. Language unknown. Pulse pattern consistent with non-random intelligence. A simple message. Repeating every 33 seconds. No modulation. No origin beacon. Just a low-frequency pulse that sounded like a heartbeat. Ba-dum. 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 Javier leaned over the comms array, eyes locked. It's not natural. It's not human. But it's directed, right at us. Kira looked from him to Liana. Why would Elon send us towards something like this and not tell us? Silence. Then Liana whispered, because he didn't think we'd make it this far. Or, maybe he wasn't sure what we'd find. Back on Earth, Gina had had enough. Tell them, she demanded. You put them out there with half the truth and full risk. They deserve better. Elon sighed, standing at the control deck, his face a strange mix of pride and regret. When we intercepted that first signal 3 years ago, I didn't tell the government. I didn't tell NASA. I told the mission. And I coded that data into the flight itself, so that if humanity ever had a shot at real contact, it would come from everyone, not just a military protocol. He looked at the live map. The ship now passing beyond the moon's far side. They're the message. We're the delivery system. Gina's voice trembled. This isn't a mission anymore, it's a first encounter. For a brief stretch, the Freedom crew passed into what should have been a complete communication blackout, no signal in, no signal out. And yet, as soon as Earth disappeared behind lunar rock, a new signal bloomed across their screens, a visual one. A glowing shape. Sharp angles. Not a ship, not exactly. It pulsed once. Then again. And then. Hello. Everyone in the capsule froze. The voice had no accent, no clear gender. It was synthetic, but not robotic. Something, in between. Muhammad whispered, that wasn't a recording. Do not be afraid. You are safe. You have come far. You have been watched. Javier leaned toward the mic. Who are you? A pause. Then a phrase that chilled them all. We are the first ones who came after the first ones who left. And we stayed, to make sure no one else would do what they did. The crew received a stream of data, embedded in the signal itself. Symbols. Formulas. Then, images. Flash after flash across the console. A star exploding. A ship fleeing it. DNA strands floating in space. A Mars-like planet, shattered. It was like a silent warning. A galactic crime scene. Kira blinked. Is that supposed to be us? Liana ran a translation model. I think they're saying they've seen this before. Civilizations rise, reach out, and something happens. Something bad. Muhammad sat back. This wasn't contact. It's a checkpoint. News of the altered trajectory had leaked. Reddit threads turned into headlines. SpaceX off course. Elon Musk lied to the world. What is Starship really carrying? Governments began demanding access to mission control. A Pentagon rep went live, warning of private actors withholding potentially extraterrestrial contact from sovereign nations. Adam turned to Gina. They'll shut this down. If they can't control it, they'll destroy it. But Gina wasn't listening. She was watching a pattern in the signal from space, it was shifting. The signal pulsed faster. Louder. Then, it stopped. The screens went black for a beat. Then flashed a single line. You are not ready. Turn back. The crew stared at it in silence. For once, no one spoke. Then another line. Others are coming. They are not kind. Kira whispered, this wasn't a message of welcome. It was a warning. Mission Control gave the crew their options. 1. Abort and return using the lunar gravity assist, re-entry would be difficult, but possible. 2. Continue on the altered course, into uncharted space, beyond the reach of Earth-based support. Elon stepped up to the live feed. I promised you truth. Now you have it. What happens next is up to you. Inside the capsule, the Freedom crew joined hands. No one spoke. But the look in their eyes said it all. They were no longer passengers. They were pioneers. The greatest mistake we could make right now is to turn back. Elon Musk. The Freedom crew sat in uneasy silence. The stars outside were brighter than ever. But their mission was no longer about Mars, or the future of human colonization. It was about something much bigger, and far more dangerous. They were now in the dark void between Earth and the unknown. They had heard the warning, but they also knew what was at stake. Turning back would be admitting defeat, not just to their mission, but to humanity itself. We can't just turn around, Kira said, her voice quiet but resolute. If they're really out there, watching us, we have to show them that we're more than just curious. We're determined. Javier nodded. And if they're warning us because they think we can't handle it, then we've got to prove them wrong. For us. For everyone. Elon's face appeared on the comm screen, his expression unreadable. He knew that the decision ahead could alter the fate of the crew, but he also understood the larger consequences. The world was watching. If the mission failed, there would be no second chances. You have to decide now, Elon said. I'm not going to lie to you. This will test everything you've trained for, and more. But there's a reason I chose you. You've proven you can go farther than anyone ever imagined. But whether you make it through this is no longer in our hands. The silence in the ship was suffocating. Liana, who had been the most cautious, was the first to speak up. We've already crossed the point of no return, she said. Turning back is not an option. The crew exchanged glances, each of them processing the weight of their decision. But in that moment, they all knew the same thing. The unknown could no longer remain unknown. They had to face it. All right, Kira said, finally breaking the tension. Let's do it. Let's see what's out there. Gina stood at the helm of Mission Control, her face illuminated by the glow of the monitors. The world had been waiting for answers. They'd been demanding transparency. But there was something else at play. Every major government, every space agency, every media outlet had been waiting for this very moment. Elon had stayed quiet for now, but he knew the consequences of this decision. The mission was no longer just a SpaceX project. It was a global endeavor, with the potential to redefine humanity's place in the universe. Tell them we're going forward, Gina said firmly, addressing the team around her. Let's finish this. The feed to the world was set. On Earth, millions of people watched in anticipation. The tension was palpable. What would the crew do? Would they turn back, or would they continue forward into the great unknown? At the exact moment when Gina's command was sent, the crew on board Freedom made their final adjustment. Trajectory set. We're heading for the unknown. The crew was now deep into the altered flight path. The signal they had been receiving, now faint but still present, was growing stronger. The warning had been clear, others are coming. They are not kind. Kira, Javier, Liana, and Muhammad were at the observation window, gazing out at the vast, empty space that stretched ahead of them. The moon, Earth, and the sun were distant, tiny points of light. It was a humbling sight, a reminder that they were on the edge of something larger than their understanding. Do you think they'll find us? Liana asked, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know, Muhammad replied. But I think it's already too late to go back. Elon's voice crackled through the comms, you've got this. I believe in you. But even with Elon's words of encouragement, the crew couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. That something was out there, silently observing their every move. A presence that had been waiting for the right moment to make itself known. And as the hours ticked by, the eerie pulse of the unknown signal continued, its message a constant reminder that they were not alone. It wasn't just a warning anymore. It felt like a countdown. Then, without warning, the signal changed again. This time, it wasn't a pulse. It was a sharp, digital burst, a sequence of images, flashing on the screen. Images of distant galaxies. Star systems that shouldn't exist. Ships, no, structures, floating in the void. Massive, sleek vessels that seemed almost too perfect to be real. The final image was a large, glowing sphere. And then, the voice returned. "You are close. We are waiting." At that moment, the ship's systems flickered, and the entire crew felt a strange hum ripple through the walls. The vibrations seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was as if the ship itself had become part of a larger entity, resonating in tune with the mysterious force outside. Javier's eyes widened as the realization dawned on him. This isn't just a signal," he said slowly. "It's a beacon. A beacon calling them closer." The crew stood at the threshold. The decision had been made. There would be no turning back. Kira, who had always been the most skeptical, stepped forward. "This is it," she said, her voice steady but filled with awe. "This is what we were meant to find." The ship's engines roared as they made the final approach to the glowing sphere. The crew watched in silence as it grew larger on their screens. Its size was unfathomable, far beyond anything human-made. It wasn't just a structure. It was a message, a symbol of something far older, far more advanced than humanity could ever hope to understand. As they drew closer, the sphere seemed to pulse with a soft, internal light. The crew could feel its energy vibrating through their very beings, a sensation that was both thrilling and terrifying. Then, the message came again, this time directly into their minds. "You are not alone. And you never have been." With that, the ship passed into the sphere's influence. And the world would never be the same again. Back on Earth, the feed cut abruptly. The world waited, breathless. Governments, media outlets, and citizens alike stared at their screens, desperate for an answer. But the only answer they would receive was silence. And that, in the end, was the most profound truth of all. The Freedom crew had crossed the boundary. They had discovered what lay beyond the stars. And now, humanity would have to decide, would they follow in the crew's footsteps into the unknown, or remain safely at home, forever wondering what might have been? Either way, they had unlocked the greatest mystery of all: we are not alone. And now, we know the universe is watching us. The end of one journey, but the beginning of another. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?